This is the latest chapter in the story of my more than 3-year relationship with a wild male feral cat that lives in the dense forest understory behind the backyard, that I refer to as the jungle. If you have followed his story from the beginning, there have been a lot of recent developments to catch up on. I'll put links to all the previous stories in the description. This is not a short nor a simple story, but a story you should stick around for. The fact that this cat still survives at all, against all odds, makes his a story worth telling. After trying to remove the cat several times, I accepted his continuing existence, and later when a rare opportunity for a relationship presented itself, I began partially supporting him with the goal of socializing him. He's a fascinating wild animal to observe and learn about how feral cats fit into unique ecosystems. I want to caution sensitive viewers that this is a real nature story, and the natural world is harsh and brutal for wild animals, and some viewers may find portions disturbing. I'll begin with a recent chapter in the story of our relationship, then recount the cat's history and discuss some issues surrounding feral cats, and present my attempts at socializing the feral cat, and end up with where we are today.
He was in a nasty fight. And as bad as it looks, the fact that he's here, it probably means he's the winner. Good grief. He likes his eggs. Poor guy. He came up against something hardcore. Some food and fresh water. Help him out. Got wounds on his legs. He actually waited nearby while I filled up the water dish this morning, which is unusual because normally he'd run away. Hey, buddy. He's escaped the trap 3 times. He's too wise for a drop trap, but even if I were to capture him, they would just put him down. Yeah. And he's a tough old guy. He wants to live on his own terms. Had himself a rough night. Hard to imagine what led to a fight of that magnitude. Because if he is that sliced up, and he's got a lot of wounds on his front legs, that means he was doing some serious damage himself. The king of the jungle.
In January 2022, I documented a raccoon attacking a male feral cat in the wild, and I continue to study their environment and behavior. These are true feral cats, descended from feral cats, and raccoons and other animals in their natural environment. The resulting behavior is not that typically seen in habituated animals feeding around houses and people. This is their private world. In the January fight, the cat got some good licks in, and the raccoon had some bites and scratches, and the cat a minor limp immediately after the fight. However, the cat has continued to pay a high price for that encounter, and appears to have a chronic injury in his right rear hip. It seems to come and go from a minor limp to a major debilitating injury at times, perhaps when he re-aggravates it. The dominant male, or boar raccoon as they are called, of this little patch of earth, doles out discipline to his fellow raccoons as well as cats. Here he is literally drooling on the camera after letting a younger raccoon know who's boss. In the following months, it looked like the cat's days may well be numbered due to a serious chronic right hip injury. This cat is at least a dozen generations removed from domestic cat relatives. Capturing the cat to get treatment and relocated to a safer environment for him and the native wildlife he preyed upon, using food as bait was out of the question. So I tried catnip as an attractant, and it really worked. The cat loved it and could spend hours under its influence. While I was away in late summer, the cat made a remarkable recovery. Speculation of his imminent demise had been premature. By October, he was once again the agile, cold-blooded killer of small mammals of the jungle. Mostly rats, but also the occasional careless squirrel. The blue jays were not always there to sound the cat alarm. The cat had perhaps become a jungle legend. Mother raccoons taught their kids to steer clear of this cat. The cat marked his sin at the trail intersection with the bobcats and the big boar raccoons, and avoided the occasional coyote and reestablished his dominance over the new male feral cat. In the late summer of 2022, there was an influx of 3 more feral or stray cats into the jungle behind the backyard. There had been tremendous habitat loss nearby, and feral cats needed places to live, just like other wild animals, so they moved into the resident feral cat's jungle territory, and a new larger male became the dominant cat. It was clear I needed to humanely remove these cats, and I easily trapped all 3 of the new cats, and they were taken to a shelter where they were neutered, treated, immunized, and released into a cat colony. But the old feral cat escaped twice from the same trap that easily caught the other 3. I had taken to calling the older cat Buddy or Bud for short, but I decided to name him Victor or Vic for short, so that's his name now. I'll put links to all the past feral cat videos in the description. Victor continued to show up in the trail cams after my failed attempts at trapping him. I put cat kibble out for the resident fish crow family and food for the other birds and squirrels in different places every morning when I'm home. On Christmas Eve 2022, Vic made his first ever morning appearance and came out to cautiously eat the crow's kibble. He had always been primarily crepuscular or nocturnal, and would always run when he saw me in the daytime. I stayed far away and filmed with a zoom lens, and he seemed okay with that. After that, he started showing up fairly regularly to eat kibble into spring, even as I caught 1 more stray cat. But then he abruptly disappeared. I didn't see him for several months and assumed perhaps something had happened to him. In my opinion, it would be easier and faster to hand-feed squirrels, raccoons, birds, or even black bears, though you obviously shouldn't do that, than it would be to get this wild feral cat to even approach within arm's reach. And that's really not the goal here, but to supplement the cat's diet and socialize him to a degree to better fit into my particular backyard ecosystem. I'm not sure what the nature of Vic's big fight was. He is now very territorial, especially as our relationship and supplemental feeding has evolved. He won't let another stray or feral cat hang in his territory. When you unknowingly remove a dominant male feral cat, it can open the door to an influx of new stray and feral cats, and you have more of a problem. Vic claimed the area around the backyard jungle as his territory and has kept all other cats away, except of course for the much bigger bobcats, which have a larger territory, and only hunt in Vic's territory occasionally. Unless the bobcats den nearby, which would of course change things for Vic. Otherwise, bobcats only pass through occasionally, hanging for a few days and then moving on. Vic obviously must coexist with him, leave or die. Here's a recent example of how Vic deals with a new cat passing through his territory. I saw this obviously pet house cat on the trail cam feed and wondered why would anybody let their beloved cat loose anywhere near this jungle mess. It had a collar and looked rather tentative moving through the understory. The next morning the new cat was hanging out in the safety of the back fence gate, and Vic wasn't having any of that. The new cat instinctively rolled on its back in defense when Vic attacked. The house cat didn't know the law of the jungle and may have misread the danger signals or body language when the old feral cat approached, with every intention of intimidation and removal, whatever that would take. Watch in slow motion how he lands a few head blows while dodging the cat's flailing claws, and never makes a sound. Vic didn't make a sound in the raccoon fight video either. That poor house cat took off and has never been seen again after this encounter. Vic's earlier fight that left him so sliced up was clearly a knockdown, drag-out, offensive fight. I would assume with another male looking for territory. Vic is probably number 4 on the list of predators in the backyard jungle ecosystem. Coyotes, bobcats, then come the amazingly deadly great horned owls, and barred owls and hawks come next. Then feral and other domestic cats. The feral cat diet doesn't overlap that much with the omnivorous raccoons. It's much easier for the raccoons to survive and prosper. But raccoons will take other small young mammals and birds, most likely while helpless in accessible nests and dens, and small snakes and lizards at times, in competition with the feral cat. So they're at about the same level of the predator pecking order. But the predatory invasive rats, even though near the bottom of the food chain, are the most destructive to this unique ecosystem if left unchecked. It's time to talk about the elephant in the room, the impact of feral cats on unique backyard environments. And I can't discuss feral cats without also addressing rats. I'll return to rats in a moment. Perhaps in a perfect world there would be no irresponsible or careless people or stray and feral domestic cats, and all would have safe homes and this cat wouldn't be my problem. But the situation is far from perfect, and while the simple answer is to blame feral cats, the reality is more complicated than that. Where I live, if a person decides to do something about feral cats, the only legal options for humanely managing them are trap, neuter, and release through the local county government animal services, which in my case strives to be 100% no-kill, or safely surrender cats to credible organizations that rescue and shelter cats. If you're a backyard bird and animal lover, amateur naturalist, or just a keen observer of nature, you're going to encounter stray, feral, or other people's loose cats eventually. You need to be aware of the laws governing proper treatment of cats in your area. Animal welfare laws are on the books just about everywhere. Approaching this issue with an open mind means one is likely to take heat from people with strong opinions on all sides of the debate. What follows is my evidence and rationale for learning more about this fascinating wild feral cat and letting him be to live out his life in unique circumstances that are no fault of his own. The definition of ecology is the study of relationships between living organisms that include humans and their particular physical environment, which we call an ecosystem. Each ecosystem is unique, and especially in suburban Florida and most suburban areas, is severely fractured and highly modified by human activity. Even in our large national parks, it's a struggle to maintain a semblance of a natural ecosystem. Just Google Everglades and pythons for an example. My little backyard ecosystem is a mess of fractured habitats with extreme vegetation cover and type changes, and distinct borders such as fence lines and canals that animals are drawn to and adapt to. Here, large carnivores continue to exist among the native and the increasingly invasive flora and fauna. Constant nearby habitat loss results in more crowding into these remaining green areas. So the idea that the existence of a single feral cat, which sits below the larger carnivores on the food chain, will cause significant ecological damage is not at all clear-cut. Feral cats are just one of the ingredients of the ecological mess that is suburban Florida today. Multiple invasive species in a fractured ecosystem can lead to some interesting and unexpected relationships and consequences. For example, there are invasive brown anole lizards that have spread over most all of Florida and are very common in the backyard and jungle. They are everywhere and pretty bold. As you can see, they are quite aggressive and easily dominated the docile native Carolina or green anole lizards, forcing them to exist higher up in the trees while the invasive brown lizards take over the ground levels. The green anole lizards are hanging on in their new niche and even making a bit of a comeback in the backyard. It is almost always the more accessible invasive brown lizards on the ground and fences that are eaten by the invasive feral cats, as the native green anole lizards are more out of reach. Now let's talk about enemy number one, in my opinion, rats. As hardly anyone talks about rats and their impact on birds and the environment and what can be done about them. I've known the general story of the rat invasion of North America for decades, and if you have an interest in ecology and animals, you should know this story. I'll put links to references in the description. Brown and black rats spread to North America on ships from Europe and Asia in the 18th century and quickly gained a foothold, with the brown rats generally dominating the black rats in most areas and proliferating rapidly over the eastern United States and still expanding westward, while black rats from Asia colonized the west. In Florida, invasive brown rats, often called Norway rats or sewer rats, are known as tree rats or roof rats, and they are widespread. There is little doubt that they are the most numerous mammal now living within the backyard ecosystem. If you do not monitor your yard with trail cameras, you have no idea what's going on at night. The moist, vegetation-rich environment is perfect for these rats. They love to nest in and raid the crowns of palm trees, and they love canal banks and overgrown fence lines, which are their highways, and dense vegetation near buildings. Native hispid cotton rats, which are much smaller and kind of cute as rats go, are becoming more active along the fence lines in the daytime. They still manage to eke out a living despite the overwhelming numbers of invasive brown rats, which are largely nocturnal, so maybe the cotton rats are adapting to fill a new niche. Typical predators of the invasive rats are bobcats and feral cats, coyotes, great horned and barred owls, with screech owls able to take juvenile rats, and several varieties of snakes, including notably red rat snakes in the backyard. But snakes are declining in population. Rampant habitat loss significantly reduces favorable conditions for larger rat predators. Feral cats are less impacted, and coyotes, which invaded to fill the predatory niche left by the long-ago extinction of the red wolf, are amazing survivors, and the big owls can survive in suburbia as long as sufficient large trees remain. But of course the invasive rats thrive best of all in fractured habitats left in the wake of habitat loss and human modification. Even in the vast Everglades National Park, recent research has shown that invasive Burmese pythons eliminate bobcats, foxes, and other rat predators, and leave a hole in the ecosystem that allows rats to thrive, and that could be a big negative on nesting birds and also spread disease. I cannot put any bird nest boxes on my trees because rats will either take them over for their own use or kill and eat the bird chicks or eggs. In fact, no ground or tree nesting bird of any size is safe from rats and a decreasing number of snakes in the backyard and surrounding dense woods. A red rat or corn snake invades a great crested flycatcher nest 10 feet up on a concrete stucco wall. Fortunately, the 4 other chicks left earlier in the day. The flycatchers are messy nesting birds with poor housekeeping that allows snakes to pick up their scent, and nothing will stop them once they lock onto a target. These snakes can climb straight up brick and stucco walls, and of course any tree trunk or branch with ease. No bird nest is safe from the rat snake. They can usually be stopped by large squirrel baffles if you place your own bird nest box on a high post. I learned my lesson the hard way. Blue jay backyard alarms are often the loudest and most emphatic when they spot a rat snake. I no longer hear ground nesting chuck-wills widows or whippoorwills, as in years past, and even the huge ground nesting black vultures, who are always on the lookout for the big raccoons that covet their eggs and chicks, can't defend against the constant onslaught of stealthy, smaller rats that look for any opportunity to grab an egg or chick at any moment the parent birds are not home or paying attention. I don't know for sure what caused the vulture nest failure last winter, but they did not come back this year. I put water containers up in tree branches for birds to drink and bathe in about 8 feet off the ground so they'd be safe from ground predators. And you can see how the tree rats love them, all night long, every night. They visit these water sources up in the trees. Invasive brown rats can reach any bird nest in any tree. They are relentless and unstoppable. Improper poison use to try and control rats is also a serious secondary danger to birds, especially raptors and also small non-target mammals that might eat it. I always worry about the screech owl parents catching a poisoned mouse or rat during nesting season and accidentally killing their owlets. After the removal of 3 of the feral cats to an established colony, leaving Vic to live out his life behind the backyard, there was a brown rat population explosion in the summer of 2023. There were probably other factors too, like the weather and food availability, and as a result, rats for the first time chewed their way into my camper van, parked on a concrete slab next to the house, and made a disgusting mess while I was gone for a month. Several $1,000s worth of damage, including chewing through the driver's seat belt, widespread defecation, and chewing up the driver's seat and door. What could have been worse is the electronics were not chewed to pieces. I caught Mother Rat inside the van and dispatched her, a typical sized brown rat. Then I put a trail camera under the van to monitor for future rat activity and entrance sites while I was gone, and look what I documented. Victor was on the case guarding against further rat intrusions. No rats have invaded since. Brown rats literally run rampant in suburban Florida and most other places if truth be known, and they are an ecological disaster. Here's one of the most bizarre videos I've captured. In the Great Smoky Mountains, a large forest mouse starts eating a male goldfinch along the mountain stream and then drags it away to a safe spot. Even in the mountains, the occasional feral or stray cats hunt for mice and rats, which are in relatively low density in the deep forest along the stream at night. Anywhere there are people, you're going to find feral, stray, or unmanaged cats. You may or may not want to deal with them, but collecting data and understanding what is really going on via trail cameras might be useful. I'll put links to my favorite trail cameras used in filming in the description. My experience has been that backyard birds will adapt to the presence of a feral cat. A feral cat is of no immediate danger to a bird or small mammal that knows where the cat is, but they will never adapt to the super stealthy bird-eating predator specialists like Cooper's hawks, especially in parts of Florida where the vegetation is green and dense all year, like the backyard jungle. If you find an explosive-looking mess of feathers like this around your yard or feeders, know that this is not from a cat kill, but most likely from one of the most proficient of all bird killers, a Cooper's hawk. If these athletic and stealthy hawks are spotted, they'll be harassed by jays, crows, and other backyard birds. They hide in heavy cover where often even the blue jays don't see them, and seemingly explode out of nowhere, striking from close range. Witnessing a Cooper's hawk explode out of dense cover and striking a bird is a sight to behold. They are particularly adept at killing birds in the dense jungle. They usually kill by standing on and slowly suffocating their prey. They have a special taste for any variety of dove, but will take most any songbird, and they like to pluck them before eating or flying off with them. I typically have families of 8 to 10 fish crows and 10 to 12 blue jays around at any one time. and the blue jays in particular guard the backyard against snakes, Cooper's hawks, and cats, and they sound the alarm which other birds and mammals in the backyard understand. This video taken when I wasn't home for some time shows blue jays on guard along the fence boundary of the backyard on the morning of August 10th and 11th. This is their guard post. They see Vic moving along the back fence toward the bird bath to get a drink and sound the alarm. Quickly, 6 to 8 jays surround the area. Vic moves toward the jungle at 10:03 a.m. and about a minute later, as he tries to take a nap on the main trail, the jays alert on him long enough to get their message out and go quiet. But there is usually one continuing to watch. By this time, any other bird or mammal is aware of the danger within several acres. Picking and choosing which mammals or birds to love and encourage at the expense of others is an ecological path with often very unique site-specific unintended or negative consequences. I know of so-called bird lovers that don't like blue jays and crows around and discourage or even kill them, but these fascinating intelligent birds keep order in the backyard environment, saving other birds and small mammals. Generalizations based on captive or domesticated animal behavior are not necessarily applicable to a feral cat's unique small fractured ecosystem. Few people really know what's going on in their backyards. I have reviewed literally thousands of hours of trail camera footage over the past dozen years or so, and have never seen a cat harm a bird. But I've seen a lot of other animals, including other birds, snakes, and rodents, hurt and kill birds. Some so brutal I've never shown them on this channel. But I don't want to romanticize Vic. He is, of course, a natural-born killer, and not only of many invasive rats, but the occasional unlucky squirrel. Rather than birds, small mammals are at greater risk from this feral cat. The cat is also on the menu of larger predators, notably coyotes, and one day Vic's number will come up. In this short video, Vic was not hunting, just relaxing on the jungle floor, when he sees a nearby squirrel not paying attention and spending too much time rooting around on the jungle floor, away from substantial trees. A target of opportunity that a feral cat can't resist. The blue jay alarms have expired and not been renewed. Vic watches with increasing attention and readies to pounce and then commits. And although the squirrel manages to briefly escape, Vic is locked on and all business. No playing around, no vocalization. Just a quick crushing bite to the back of the neck and a quick death. Squirrels and birds in the actual backyard fare much better due to wide open spaces with no hiding places for stalking cats and the safety of fences and big oak and mango trees nearby to escape to. Victor is a wild feral cat that requires nothing from humans to survive, just as the other mammals and birds are perfectly capable of surviving on their own. I didn't see Victor in person during most of the summer of 2023, as I was traveling frequently. Vic showed up on trail cameras briefly in the morning and evening getting a drink and checking the fence line for rats and lizards. When I returned in November, I resumed putting out a daily kibble breakfast for the fish crow family and wondered how Vic was doing back in the jungle. Then Vic came out in the open early one morning to eat the crow's kibble as I watched from afar. I knew I was going to be around most of the winter, so I decided to try and socialize him and see what kind of relationship we could develop. My last attempt, with no doubt one of Vic's male ancestors many generations ago, was futile as that cat could never even tolerate my presence in the backyard. In Vic's case, actual human contact and being an indoor cat was out of the question. But he was already further along than the previous feral cat, which just disappeared one day, never to return. A few recordings of my morning sessions with Vic follow. I started out by putting food and occasional catnip silvervine mix in a ground feeder next to the safety of the fence, and sitting about 25 feet away, and worked from there. Okay, I've got him interested, so I'm escalating things a little bit by giving him a little bit of gourmet cat food that I have left over for the... Now he's coming right out in the open a little bit, so it's a sign of progress. This tough old cat has lived back there in the jungle for probably almost 4 years. He's a survivor back there with the coyotes and the raccoons and the bobcats. He doesn't care much for birds, but he's definitely going to take a squirrel if he gets a chance, but he primarily eats rats and lizards. And that's mainly because rats and lizards are just so easy to catch, and so many of them out there. Yeah, he likes that. He perked him right up, which is a major breakthrough just in a couple of days. And I think cat food, the good cat food was, of course, the trick is you got to feed him when he's close to the fence. That way he feels secure. He's got his just turn and run into the jungle and he's safe. Beautiful eyes. To sit here in a chair and gradually move closer and closer until I get maybe 4 or 5 feet. See how that goes. I think as long as he's in an easy escape route into the jungle through the fence gate, he feels more relaxed. He does not come into the yard in the daytime, just right at the edge of the fence. Squirrels are wisely on guard, and they will not let their guard down until he disappears back into the deep jungle. If you do any kind of backyard bird feeding, or pay a lot of attention to what goes on in your backyard, you're going to have to deal with feral cats sooner or later. Actually, it's the stray cat and the owned cat that's let loose are actually worse than the ferals, because the ferals are really adept at catching other food. Whereas strays and just your typical wandering house cat, they're fascinated by birds. This guy is pretty much a economical hunter. Look at all that catnip all over. Catnip definitely changes their character though, makes them much more manageable. And I think it has healing qualities. By Florida standards, it's a cold morning. So he's come out here to get some sun too, and there's no sun in the jungle at all. But right on this side of the fence near the edge, you can get a bunch of sun. He is not going to let me get too close, but he can hang out here and enjoy himself in the sun with his catnip and his food. I'll just move in a little closer each time. He's not going to get caught though. He's too wise for that, too experienced. And he's just become sort of the old man of the jungle. Food is not a problem back there. There's just so many rats and lizards. People tend to forget that lizards are actually good eating, and cats like fish. Lizards are just probably better than a fish. You don't have to deal with all the scales and everything. There's a lot of invasive lizards. They sit there right at the fence, and that's the same with just about any wildlife. The strong boundary between two extreme habitats really attracts the wildlife. Once he's high on catnip, though, he has no interest in eating. No ambition whatsoever. That is the post-catnip mellow period. He's getting relaxed. He is letting his guard down. I think it takes a while for the catnip to really get into his system. Not a care in the world. Squirrel's not happy about it. And he's totally wasted now. I'm going to lean forward on my knees and see what happens here.
See there? Just the slightest movement. Yeah. That's probably a little too early to try and make that kind of a move. I'm sitting in a chair about, I guess, about 10 to 12 feet from the cat. So we're making some progress. He's got some catnip there on the board, which he loves to eat. It doesn't seem to get adapted to the catnip. He always has a strong reaction to it. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why he healed up so well is the catnip. You can see he's ate it, and now he just rubs it right all over his head. He's just out soaking up some sun after having some kibble. Well, they stay about 8 to 10 feet away and don't make any moves. He's relaxed. He just made a move. He's coming over. Oh my gosh. Yeah, he's made a move from over there all the way over to here toward me. Kind of like what happened when I made friends with a cat almost 8 years ago. We were kind of at a standoff, and I'm sitting in my chair, and all of a sudden he just started walking over about halfway to me and stopped, sat for a while, and now he's soaking up the sun. When it comes to getting close to a feral cat, you gotta let them come to you. If you try and approach them, well, first off, there's no real graceful way to approach a cat that's down low on 4 legs, chilling in the sun. And the birds are going about their business, but not the squirrels, and rightly so. The cat doesn't have a whole lot of interest in birds. He knows from experience that he's going to waste his time. He knows that mammals are the easier things to catch and eat. And the squirrels are not going to come anywhere near him, and they're sounding the alarm. Once the blue jays got to know where he is, and they keep an eye on him and go about their business. But yes, that's why it's important to have your bird feeders in a place where a cat can't hide near him and jump. There's no way he's going to cross an open grass to get to the bird feeder without the jays being all over him. And in the forest, the birds are usually in the trees. And there's plenty of rats. And once in a while he'll catch a careless squirrel back in the jungle, but not here in the yard. See, a cat is not an emotional beast. People like to have all these emotional feelings, hating or loving cats, but it's just a wild animal. He's not just like a lion. He's not constantly ferocious and hungry. When he gets hungry, he eats. If there's a target of opportunity, he'll take it. But when the sun is shining and there's birds and squirrels all around him, he'll just take a nap. It's just another animal. As relaxed as he looks, if a squirrel would have come anywhere within reasonable range of him on the grass, he would be up and after him. Okay, so Mr. Feral Cat is becoming part of the landscape now. He's coming in most mornings to have some kibble. And what I did today is I moved the feed tray about 6 feet inside the fence there. I guess I'm sitting about 8 feet away from the cat. When the cat's in the edge of the backyard, I just feed the squirrels in a different place, but most of them continue to alarm on the cat, which is a good thing. But what's interesting is the blue jays will always alarm on the cat if I'm not around. But if it's feeding time, the blue jays just go about their business eating, because they obviously know where the cat is and what their capabilities are, so they have no fear of the cat. And there's a secondary feeding area over here on the table with a scrambled egg and a little bit of kibble. That's for the crows and the warblers. He's coming over to the secondary food, which means he's moving very close to me. He thought about coming over and he changed his mind. Well, I moved him in a little closer this morning. He's eating just about, I guess he'll be eating about 8 feet away. I'm sitting in a chair, and I put some catnip out this morning to see if that gets him going. Maybe a little catnip will lighten him up a little bit. Beginning to have a little bit of a regular daily routine where he's waiting for me now in the morning when I come out to feed the birds. And I just feed the birds and the squirrels on the other side of him, and he doesn't really pay much attention. Eating his kibbles, now he's eating some of the catnip. I'm thinking if he gets a little high on catnip, it might be a little easier to get him to be more relaxed. And yeah, good stuff, huh? After eating it for a few seconds, he's gonna roll over, I'll bet. Yeah, there we go. Unfortunately, I'm not at a best angle, but if I move, I'll spook him after we're making all this progress, so we'll just let him be. He never gets tired of the catnip. There he goes. Loves his catnip. He's over for his egg. Actually, it's the leftover egg yolk, the part that I don't eat. Warblers love it, catbirds love it, mockingbirds love it, crows, and cats, of course. Squirrels not. But right now, I'm about exactly 6 feet away from him, sitting in a chair. I think if I was standing, that would make him a little more nervous. But he's coming around. He's getting old, just wants to have a nice breakfast and go back in the jungle there. Come here. I'd say I got my hand within about six feet of him there, and he's heading back. And if you look up here, the blue jays are all watching him. Food a little bit closer, and I'm actually standing here doing some photography in the back here, and cat's about 6 feet away, and I'm on top of him. And this, I'm beside him this time, so it is definitely becoming more socialized. And then over here we have his scrambled egg, and I put some catnip this time to kind of soften him up. We'll see how he does. He's eating his scrambled egg yolk, and he hasn't reacted to the catnip this time. Maybe he's going to finish eating first. He's socialized to the extent that he shows up for breakfast, eats close and relaxes, but actual human contact might be a little bit far-fetched as a goal. So here's where we are after 2 months. The cat comes out pretty reliable every morning when I'm around. I put out the kibble, and if the crows don't get here first, then the cat gets the kibble. And you can see I'm, I guess, 6 feet seems to be the space that he wants, about 6 feet. I'm sitting in a chair over here, and I'm throwing peanuts at the blue jays and squirrels. Get along pretty good here, but if I try and make a move toward him, he's going to take off. As the old timer really spends most of his time back in the jungle hunting rats, and I had never even found him interested in a bird. In fact, the blue jays seem to have their way with him. I mean, birds are incredibly intelligent and agile. So if they know where a cat is, then they just kind of adapt and work around him. Now the squirrels, on the other hand, have to be a little more careful. So here I am with, here you go, Mr. J. Have a nut. Oh, three blue jays. See, I've got about 3 to 4 blue jays hanging out up here, and the squirrel over here. So what I do, I'll throw a nut over to the squirrel. In the meantime, the cat just chows down on the old kibble. There he is. And he's pretty much comfortable with me as long as I don't make a move for him, which I'm not intending to do. Seems to enjoy his breakfast, keeps him out of trouble. It's looking a little healthier. And there's no sign of any other feral or stray cats anywhere around, so working out pretty well. No shortage of rats out there, that's for sure.
We've come full circle back to March 27, 2024, the second day after Vic's big fight. Life is never easy in the wild. The threat of death is constant. One day you have a great meal and are soaking up sunshine, the next you're in a fight for your life. He's looking rough but eating well. He's tough and thought to have been on his last legs before. He'll pull through this rough patch. The deepest gashes on both sides of his head seem almost too widely spaced for domestic cat claws at first glance. But cats in real life and death fights don't play around. They open their paws wide with claws fully extended to devastating effect. When two cats truly fight, winner take all, it can be brutal. It's now 4 days after the fight, and Vic's lighter scratches are healing up nicely. The deeper gashes have scabbed over, and the deeper wounds to his neck and front feet have closed up. He's going to be okay. Good food and fresh water help, and I also believe catnip and silvervine have healing properties, or at least make the cat feel better and relax. And I think the fight was with another tomcat over territory. Vic wouldn't survive a fight with a bobcat, and wouldn't stand ground and fight at close range with a big raccoon. So I'm pretty sure it was another feral cat looking for its own territory, and it didn't win.
He's doing okay. And here's Vic on August 12th, 2024. He just got back from a trip up north, and he didn't show up for a couple of days, and now he's showed up for the crow's kibble. Actually looking pretty good.
The circle of life continues in the unique and messy environment that is the backyard ecosystem. Vic lives out his life in the jungle, always on the alert for the much bigger apex predators while keeping other feral cats away from his territory, and eating mostly invasive rats and invasive lizards. The squirrels and blue jays are always watching for Vic and sounding their alarms. Vic doesn't stop by every day. My close daily relationship with the backyard birds, whose lives are always hard, continues with a variety of food and feeding stations and nest boxes made as safe from various predators as can be. The super intelligent fish crows, blue jays, cardinals, mockingbirds, and migratory catbirds and warblers have adapted to the cat's occasional breakfast stops by trying to get to their kibble and egg yolks first every morning when I'm around. The fast-breeding invasive brown tree rats, which truly are unstoppable, continue to be the unseen and unspoken scourge on the environment, never resting in their constant search for food from the ground to the tops of every tree. As for Victor, I'm glad I got to know him better. He is a fascinating wild animal. Like all feral cats, he's not here by choice. He's a natural-born survivor playing the hand he was dealt. It's a human problem, not a cat problem. This winter I'm going to capture Victor and get him fixed, checked out, and vaccinated. But then what to do with Vic? Vic has shown he is ready and willing to lay his life on the line to keep other cats out of the backyard and surrounding jungle. If I remove Vic, I have no doubt that within a week or two I'd have a new feral or stray cat, or perhaps multiple cats take his place. Victor has had rough patches and pulled through each of them to sit once again in the sunshine, just like I have so far, knock on wood. If you don't know a feral cat's story, just a snapshot at any point in time, you'll come to differing opinions. Vic is just one little cat in one small place, with his own story. And in this particular little patch of disturbed earth at least, there's room for him to fit in.